Welcome to the JD and Associates Calibration Point podcast. Our podcasts are designed to bring a conversational exploration of key topics that we believe will provide value and insight to those serving in the nonprofit sector. We will highlight new developments in the field, latest research, and things we're learning from our own clients that we can share. If there are topics that you would like to see explored, please send them to us through our website at jdlevyassociates.com. Hello and welcome to the Calibration Point podcast. I'm Chuck Wills here with Sarah Downing, and we are filling in for Jamie Levy this month. And we are here to talk about crowdfunding. How are you, Sarah?
Hey, I'm doing good, Chuck.
Good. Hey, I'm glad we could be here today doing this together. I know that you've become somewhat of an expert on crowdfunding in working with JD Levy clients and also some of the research that you've done. And so I look forward to unpacking some of this with you today because I have worked on some of this with my clients as well.
Oh, great.
Yeah. So why don't we start out just by defining what is crowdfunding?
Yeah. So crowdfunding is simply funding a project or a venture by raising money from large amounts of people. And typically we are today going to talk about how to do that online over the internet.
Right. So online giving, obviously, that's something that has been on everybody's radar for some time now. And the concept of crowdfunding is a particular style of online giving that has been getting a lot more traction lately.
That's right. In our COVID impacted world, where everything was driven online quickly to Zoom, virtual events, we had to figure out different ways to reach our donors, and crowdfunding has emerged as an effective tool. So we're going to take a look at it and see how we can use it now while we're still navigating COVID, and then opportunities for implementing it in a more normal giving year.
Okay, outstanding. Well, and going along with the definition, let's just give a little bit of context. When we talk about crowdfunding, we probably need to talk a little bit about the platforms that are used for that. So, one that I'm familiar with is GoFundMe. That's one that I've used before. I've heard of people using just some of the standard social media platforms like Instagram, Facebook. I know you're familiar with a few others.
Yeah, GiveButter is one. I think Classy has a platform. There are a lot of different ones out there, and they all have different capabilities from texting to how donors can communicate and share on the platform. So I recommend looking into those deeply before you decide on what you choose. Right. And also on the back end, think about security and transparency and your ability to give your donors a receipt for their giving. I mean, we've got to do our proper stewardship and making sure when donors give, we know that they've given and that we are able to respond back to say thank you for that gift.
Right. So this is still development. This is just a different channel for that development work. Okay. Yes. So we still have to be professionals about this. Right. Yes. Outstanding. Okay. Well, another question I have is, why do it? Is it effective? Have organizations really been able to get traction doing this? I know individuals have. I've seen individuals go to crowdfunding for any number of things, health expenses, emergencies, disaster, that kind of thing. But for a nonprofit, for an organization, can they see impact from this?
Yes. And that's why we wanted to talk about it today. There's been some really great research that has emerged from the Lilly Family School of Philanthropy at IU. One study on just crowdfunding, and then more recently, one from the Women's Institute looking at how women donors are engaging. One reason it's growing in popularity is because it's easy, it's convenient for your donors. They can do it from their phone. They can do it quickly. What they found is 1/3 of everyone that they surveyed from their study have already participated, and 90% of the survey respondents know about crowdfunding. So it's becoming, ever so popular. People have heard of it, have engaged with it, and the response has been really good.
So this is something that people accept. It's sort of like if we rewind 10 years when online giving was starting and people would want to use PayPal, and that was new. So this is a new trend that's sticking around and people are accepting it.
Yes. And I think we want to continue to legitimize it as an effective tool for fundraising.
Well, when I hear that it's easy and I can do it on my phone, the next thing I think is this something that becomes transactional? How do we keep it within the context of a relational type giving?
Really, really good question. As we always want to focus on our relationships and fundraising. Offline, an organization can gain momentum by sharing before they launch the campaign online. But in addition to what is on their giving platform, I would say that giving platform, they need to have developed, a mini case statement for that campaign. They need to be communicating very thoroughly, as they would with any other campaign, what the money is being raised for and where it's going to. If this is the donor's primary contact point for this venture with your organization, you got to do your job. And because if that information isn't easily found on your giving page or your platform, they won't give. You can lose them in the process.
Okay. So again, we have to do our development homework. We have to do our jobs.
Yes.
Okay.
Always.
Sarah, you've done a lot of research around this. Tell me, what are some of the key findings that you've run across?
One of the biggest findings is that crowdfunding is enabling nonprofits to diversify their donor base. Those who are giving to crowdfunding campaigns, the recent study that came from IU found that crowdfunding donors are more diverse and distinct. They are younger, and they're less religious, and more diverse than normal donors, traditional donors who tend to be older, more religious, wealthy, and married.
So this is really an entry point to diversify the donor base.
It is, yes.
Okay.
It's a very effective tool of diversifying the database and increasing numbers for the database. So it's giving opportunity for an organization to grow in size when they properly steward these relationships afterwards. So not only have they found that it's effective for onboarding, donors will continue to give and stay in relationship with the organization if they're engaged after the campaign.
Okay. So I think one misconception that I've had to deal with a number of times is the notion that when you do crowdfunding, you just throw your case up on whatever platform you want and that the internet takes care of the rest of it. And what I'm hearing from you is it is not a set and forget type proposition, that you still have to do, as you said, the stewardship around those relationships. It's just a different channel to meet new people.
Yeah, you're exactly right.
Okay.
And I think that is a very common misconception, is when we go to our socials to fundraise or create an online giving campaign like this, that we put it out there and we expect people to come to us and give. And that's just not the way that it works.
Right.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Even in our traditional fundraising, we have to make a point to connect with donors. And again, it needs to be easy for the donors to connect.
Yeah. Well, another thing you said was that donors are most likely to give to people that they know.
That's true. Yeah.
Okay.
And I think that's why we've seen so many successful small scale campaigns for friends or family members who are fundraising on behalf of another for cover, medical costs, or
right.
if a fire and they're, fundraising to help that family, people are more likely to give to ones they know than if they were asked by a celebrity or an influencer online. So
Okay.
the relationships are still very much into play on who is giving.
Okay. Well, I want to ask you for a second. You talked about emergencies. I had mentioned medical needs before. I know that individuals doing crowdfunding, those are some typical themes that you will see. For an organization that's doing crowdfunding, are there typical things that may work well or may not work well in the crowdfunding environment?
For crowdfunding campaigns, I like to see something that's a little more tangible, that has like what we call handles. to raise more for something that's concrete, whether your organization is doing a building campaign or you need to purchase a vehicle or, just create a small pool of funding to, start up a project. More short-term, smaller, achievable goals is a great place to start with a crowdfunding campaign.
Okay, very good. Sarah, I'm sure that donors are concerned about a number of things when they look at a crowdfunding opportunity. What are some of the high points that you would note on that?
As we mentioned, first and foremost, ease and convenient for your donors. You, as a fundraiser, need to have really good language on there, a comprehensive case. But as far as we look at transparency and accountability, go with a credible platform, ask around, see what's working well for others, making sure that you're able to obtain your donors' contact information after they give, and also making sure that the giving platform is compatible with your typical reseeding process so that your donors are able to make their donation tax deductible. It's important to note, not all crowdfunding campaigns are tax deductible. So if you are giving to a friend or a family member, those type of things typically aren't. But as a nonprofit, gifts are tax deductible, and making sure that donors are able to claim that benefit when they give.
Well, that's an important distinction, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Sarah, since crowdfunding is online and we're talking about individuals engaging, how important is the social share component of this? Is there any expectation or call to action for our donors to share their actions on their personal social media channels?
Yeah, such a great question, because this is what can make or break a campaign.
Okay.
What the research has shown is when donors give and then they share that and ask others to give, those campaigns are the most effective, which makes sense, right? You are broadening your reach when your donors share and ask others to give. That is what builds the crowd of crowdfunding. And if those asks aren't being made on behalf of the organization, you're limited to who you already know. So I think it's important going into the campaign to share that with donors and empower them to ask their friends, maybe give them some possible language that they can use to make that ask on your behalf. Okay. And share it. Ask them to ask 5 of their friends. It's the difference in receiving 1 donation or 5 or 30 when other people become part of the campaign. And that's really what it's all about. Large numbers of people giving to meet a goal.
Absolutely. So having a call to action around that beyond the giving, but about the sharing, yes, is really critical to success. That's what I'm hearing.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Outstanding. If my organization becomes really adept at crowdfunding, can I abandon all other types of fundraising? Can I just quit everything else?
Of course not.
Okay, thanks.
And you know that. So
yeah,
let's think of crowdfunding as another tool in our fundraising toolbox, just as social media is, your appeal letters, your events, everything you're doing. Crowdfunding has its appropriate time and place.
Since crowdfunding, as you said earlier, is introducing a new demographic or a new population of people to your organization, this really sounds like a first impression. So how do we make a good first impression via crowdfunding?
Yeah, you're right, Chuck. When we're effectively doing our job of creating a large donor base, growing our donors from these campaigns, this is a first impression. This is the first time that they may have heard about your organization, become familiar. Again, so it's critical that your giving platform that you're using is, very well thought out and thorough. You want to make sure all your links are working. The basics. Also, being very clear on what the offer is, what that need is that's being filled. This is a possibility for error on the part of a nonprofit if they raise more money than what they ask for. Wonderful, you raise more money, but that needs to be said to donors. If we exceed our goal, then extra funds will be used in this way. We want to make sure we honor our donors' intent. So that's something else you need to be very clear and upfront with donors, especially new donors. That first impression, your credibility. I'm going to make sure, again, you're doing your job effectively as a fundraiser.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is we can't throw this together last minute just because the interface is easy to use online. We still have to be thorough and thoughtful and have a plan and a process for all of this, really just as we would for any other type of campaign.
Yes, you're right. And as with any other campaign, the follow-up to this campaign will be critical. So how are donors first going to be thanked? And then how are they going to be transitioned into your annual fund? What does their next communication look like from you? Those things need to be planned out ahead of time as well, so that your organization is giving donors the opportunity to further get to know you, learn about your mission and vision, and then eventually, involve them and inspire them to be advocates for you. It all starts with that initial contact. So,
right.
This is a great opportunity for your organization to build its donor base.
Sure. It's a great opportunity in it. Again, as we've said a couple times in this is just a different channel for these standard best practices that we always talk about in terms of building relationships, donor care. And if we don't do that, just like anything else, it's an opportunity to damage a relationship.
Yes.
Sarah, it sounds like crowdfunding is certainly something that most organizations will want to at least take a look at, if nothing else, as an additional tool in their development toolbox.
Yeah, you're exactly right.
Okay. A lot of upside. And I think the concerns that we've identified are really nothing outside the ordinary of any other development campaign. Sarah, I'm glad that we got to fill in for Jamie this month and talk about crowdfunding. It's been really great to kind of unpack this with you.
Yeah, it has. It's always nice when he hands the mic over to us, isn't it?
I know. It's fun. All right. Well, hope to see you on a future episode.
Okay, sounds great.
Thanks for listening to the J.D. Levy & Associates Calibration Point podcast. If you have comments or ideas for future episodes, please reach out using the contact page on our website, jdlevyassociates.com.